What's up, everybody? Colin here, Wild CEO. I want to talk to you today about the most important principle of everything that I do and what I believe is the foundation for human health. It's the mismatch concept. So every species in nature has an environment, has a habitat that it thrives in the best, okay? Humans, up until about 10,000 years ago, lived the bulk of our existence in the wild, right? We lived in the woods, in nature, in the jungle, desert. We lived without all of this, right? Without walls, without technology, without food preservation, without social media, without video. And we thrived in that environment. We moved to the top of the food chain. We are the only living hominid alive today. We are the winners. We are the winners of evolution. And we are today, as a result, we've been able to dominate every other species of animal on planet Earth. And we are an animal. We are mammals, right? We are Homo sapiens sapiens. We like to think of ourselves as not that, right? But we are, which means we have a natural human diet. We have a natural human, average amount of movement we should be doing on a daily basis. We have things that are not natural to our species, like phones and social media, and not getting enough sleep, and staying up at all hours of night with artificial light, eating processed refined foods, having food always on demand, being able to eat all the time, every single day, being able to forego fasting, which was natural to our species because of the unavailability and the inconsistency of food in the wild. So this mismatch concept applies to everything. I mean, literally everything: relationships, dating, mating, psychology, your friendships, right? The in versus out group bias, like groupthink, mob mentality, racism, tribalism, quite literally everything. And I'm not gonna go into all those rabbit holes right now. I'm just gonna kind of give you the underlying thesis of this idea and how it is one of those foundational first principles of human health. So you can start thinking about that and you can start finding examples of that. And then hopefully you build a foundation of understanding that is a representation of your biology, your human biology. This is a unbiased, pure view of the human animal, right? That is what the mismatch theory is based on. So real quick, to wrap this up, short video, big idea, right? Something that you got to think about on a regular basis, something that informs everything I do with the Ancestral Mind brand, with my life, the way I eat, the way we're going to raise our son without going to school, the way I don't believe in marriage, but I do believe in commitment, so things like that. It informs everything. So much of our world today is a huge detachment from nature and from the way humans are, the human animal. So this is something that I feel is needed in our culture. We need it more than ever. If you look at the skyrocketing rates of sickness and disrepair and just the devolving of our species, that's literally what humans are devolving. If you look at the modern human living in a Western industrialized society and culture with things like mass transportation, mass media, mass connection, on-demand food, etc., humans are devolving because the things that we have today are quite literally the opposite of how it was for us when we lived in the wild. We had simpler lives. We were always in the now. We always moved. Our food was inconsistent and varied. It was always from the wild. It was always real and natural in some way. And we usually had to hunt for it, or we had to process it, or do things manually. We had to spend calories to find calories, right? Now we just walk to the fridge and grab it. And so that's probably the most telling example of how our food system is completely and utterly mismatched. It's also why I believe that fasting is a first principle for humans. It's not something that we're doing just as a weight loss gimmick. It is, and this is why it is universally found through research to be so beneficial for the human animal. If you go in the wild, here's a good example. This will kind of paint the picture for this theory and why I believe it's the first principle, why I believe fasting is the first principle, and we'll just kind of end it there. So in the wild, you've ever been camping, right? Or if you just literally find a patch of woodwork somewhere, go walk through the woods for a little bit and try to find food. Now, obviously, our ancestors knew edible plants. They knew how to hunt. They knew how to stalk prey. They knew how to do all these things. They knew what berries were safe and what weren't. And we were very much removed from that in our modern world. But it's still hard to find food in the wild. And you have to move and hunt it and find it and forage it. And when you did find it, especially if it was just sitting on a tree, right? Usually it wasn't a ton of calories. And then we get into things like, industrialized fruit, how much we eat sugar and carbs, how scarce carbs are in nature, which is why low carbs kind of a thing, why keto is a thing. You see that the most calorie dense foods in nature were always in the form of an animal, and those animals would actively try to avoid to be eaten. The world we live in today, we can walk to the fridge and we can find a fridge full of calories, more calories than we could ever eat in one sitting or, in a week in a lot of cases. But in the wild, you don't see any of that. And we would have to go out and find it. And hunters that have been observed, modern day hunters, hunter-gatherers, had something like a 10% success rate. Now, this is different for different cultures around the world, different environments. Like the Plains Indians, where the buffalo roamed and the bison, like they probably would have been able to go out every single day and have a big kill and eat just meat to their heart's extent. But like in certain other climates, like the Bushmen of the Kalahari Desert and other African tribes that rely primarily on monkey meat, they would go out daily to hunt the monkeys. It was probably a 6 to 8 hour affair, like almost your average workday, right? And they would kind of walk through the woods, look for opportunities. Maybe they would scavenge something. If they came across some monkeys to hunt, they would stalk the prey and they would try to catch the monkeys. But I mean, imagine a monkey in a tree running from you. Like, it's not exactly the easiest thing to catch. The observed percentages of a successful hunt was something around 10% is what they observed. And this might have been in the 60s or 70s or 80s when they did this research. So imagine that. You go out every single day for 7 days, a whole week, right? And you're only successful about 10% of the time. So it's something like 1 in 7 days or 1 in 10 days, a better example would be 10%. Only 1 day out of 10 may you have found or been successful in hunting a meat, which you would have then brought to camp and everybody would have shared. And then even that was a monkey, like it wasn't really like a ton of meat. So these are just examples that kind of show you the mismatch of our modern environment. Now we can go out with 100% efficiency and we can get as much food as we want and we can eat as much as we want. In the world we lived in before, we would have had to hunt, move, whatever. We wouldn't have been successful most of the time for like a big, bulky, calorie-dense meal, right? And I mean, we would have found berries and twigs and leaves and maybe we'd found some tubers or whatever, but that would have still been a lot less calories, right? And a lot less often and more work to acquire those. You know, imagine picking a handful of berries, right? Like you got blueberries, you got to pick them off a bush, right? Maybe sometimes there's thorns you got to move through. Like you would have had to expend a lot of calories to get that. Today it comes in a clamshell and I can just eat it. The only calories I'm expending are going like this, right? But imagine dip down 1, up top 1, left, right. Another example of the mismatch. We don't have to expend any calories for our food, and we have more food than we would have ever had in nature, and we have it on demand whenever we want, 24/7. That is the best example of the mismatch theory, which is why so much time is spent on diet as being one of the leading causes to the metabolic disrepair and the ever-growing cancer rates, heart disease rates, etc. But a little bit longer than I want to. Did a microdose earlier, so I'm really motivated with this. But this idea is so important for every human being. It's one of those universal ideas for all humans, and it informs all of human health. And then you get into fascinating things like evolutionary psychology and mating and all these different things. It's a really fascinating study, which is why I read so much on it and why I have the Ancestral Mind brand. It's what informs what we do at Wild Foods and the fact that our food should be as close to nature as possible. It informs everything, okay? So it's just something to think about, Drop a comment below if you have any questions on this or any topics you want me to cover and some of these different rabbit holes we can go down. Thanks for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe wherever this is at. And then go over to theancestralmind.com and get the 7 Principles of Living Wild PDF cheat sheet. Super short PDF that you can skim through. And it's some of the big things that you can do for the 7 most important first principles of what make for a healthy human animal. We live in the modern world. We need to try to mimic what our ancestors would have done as much as possible. Not suggesting you go live in the woods, although you'd be a lot healthier if you did. But let's bring some of that wildness into our modern environment and do things that mitigate the negative health effects of the mismatched environment we live in. Thanks for watching.